remember the last time I saw him alive. He went to our place at the beach with a whole group of his guy friends, and he was at the bottom of the stairs, and I said, "I love you, Ben, be careful." I am Bonnie Woodruff, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my story happened a long time ago, but it's still pertinent, I think, because, there's still people that die in fires. But my son was a rising junior at the University of North Carolina. He had blonde hair and big blue eyes. He was a big guy, and he was a gentle spirit. He was just a gentle giant. He was a soccer player, and he excelled. He was a mid-court, and you just didn't get the ball past him. I mean, he was steady as steady goes. He loved to surf. He played the guitar. When he went to Chapel Hill, he coached a girls' soccer team, like a school soccer team. He made very good grades. He never really studied. After he died, so many people wrote me of kind things that he had done for them that I never knew. It was Mother's Day, and it was graduation day, and he went back the night before just to be with some of his friends who were graduating. So the Phi Gams had the party, and parents were there. It was a parent-sponsored graduation party, and my husband was at a medical meeting, and it was Mother's Day, so we were going back to our home churches he was going to be with his mother, and I was going to be with my mother, and Ben was going to come join us at church. Ben never came, and I was trying not to be upset because it was Mother's Day, and I did not want to be angry at him. And Leon came up to me, and he said, "Bonnie, there's been a fire at the Phi Gam house in Chapel Hill, and I fear the worst, that Ben is missing." And I don't know how you can comprehend something like that, so I didn't comprehend it very much. I just started, I don't remember, but I fell apart. And so we were advised immediately to go to Chapel Hill. We got there, and we went to the Carolina Inn, which is where the big celebration, the lunch, kids were celebrating. Most of them would have lunch at the Carolina Inn. And I remember when we drove into Chapel Hill, the acrid air, you could smell the smoke. So we walked in, and everybody was happy, and it was graduation and Mother's Day, and it became silent when we walked in, just complete silence. The next person I think we saw was the chancellor, and I just remember going up to him and pulling on his tie and just saying, "How could this happen?" It was just poignant. It was beyond belief. They had his wallet, and they had confirmed that he was one of the 5 who died that day. And it still seems surreal to me that in the history of that school, of the University of North Carolina, there's been a major fire, and my son was one of the ones that died. I still sometimes just find it hard to believe. The best they can tell from where the origin was, it was because some fathers and sons were standing around the bar, and there was a trash can, and they were smoking cigars. And, I think a cigar got in the trash can that was not completely put out, and it swooshed. And the house was old. It had layers of latex paint and wood paneling, and there was a central stairwell. And it just swooshed up. I mean, it just went so fast. Ben had gotten up, and he had fallen over on his bike. He had a bicycle up on the wall, and he'd fallen over the bicycle. So I'm hoping that it was a short awareness that something, was going on. But we saw him later. I mean, we got to see him, and he wasn't burned. He was not burned. He had singes, and his hair was burned. But I was just so thankful that, because that wasn't true of some of the victims. So that was a real blessing to be able to have seen him and know that he didn't burn. He died of smoke inhalation. I don't remember the next few days. I really don't. I mean, I remember getting out of bed. I remember my husband screaming out and just, he felt like somehow should have been able to save him. I just remember after a month, I thought, now Ben, you've been gone long enough now. It's just time to come on home. I just don't think we can do this. And that's how I felt for so long. He's just going to show up. Surely this wasn't real. But then in my mind, in my heart, I knew it was real, but it was just hard to accept. And it was quite a journey. I got out of bed every day. Every day friends would have something for me to do, and I would wake up and I'd look in the mirror and I'd put a big smile on my face and I'd say, "It's showtime, folks." Because that's not how I felt. I felt like I wanted to feel like I was in control, and I knew I wasn't. I eventually got to the point that I just had to still put on a smile and go out, and I'd get back home and I'd fall apart, and go out and fall apart. I was seeing my therapist 5 times a week, if that tells you one thing. And my friends would take me places, and I don't know, I just remember day after day, you wake up and it's real, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have 2 choices. You have 2 choices. You can either be a wreck the rest of your life and let it ruin your life and become an alcoholic or whatever, or you can choose to be proactive and get out there and save other lives. And every time I tell my story, it heals a part of my heart. It really does. You just get through it. I don't know. I don't know I wish I had an answer. I wish I had the magic formula for how you do it. But I don't. You just do it. Because you have to. I remember exactly what he had on. I can see his ball cap and the T-shirt and his shorts. But, I wish, but I'm living what I live because I made the decision that I had to pick up the pieces and I had to do what I could do to help myself and help others and help my daughter. And really, going to therapy helped me a lot. And I remember my husband went for 2 years, and then he came home one night and he said, "I'm finished. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not talking about it anymore." And I was far from being finished. At first, everything was about Ben. And Ben became a saint. He wasn't a saint at all, but he became a saint. And, and I think my daughter felt, well, she said to me after about 5 years, she said, "Mom, I not only lost my brother, I lost my parents." Well, that was like a wake-up call right there. I just quit letting that be the center of everything I did and thought about. But it took a long time. Fire sprinklers are activated at the point of the fire. It's not like what you see in the movies when all the sprinklers are going off and, people are running. They are activated where the fire is, and they put it out where the fire is. Oh, it would have just been a whole different story if there had been fire sprinklers. The chief of a fire department, he went to the administration and the city town council and just said, these old fraternity houses are a fire trap, and we need to think about getting them retrofitted with fire sprinklers. And he was told in no uncertain terms that I think he was overreacting and they didn't have the money. But they found the money, Later, it was too late for Ben, but they found the money. 25 years ago, fire sprinklers weren't in my mind either. But it never occurred to me to have a discussion with anybody about, is my son going to be staying where it's safe? Now, that's what I tell parents to do. You make sure that when your child goes off to school or wherever, that they have a safe place to stay that's fire sprinklered. I went to Pennsylvania and I went to Wisconsin, and I just went around and talked to other schools. And I had a story, and I knew it was a story that needed to be out there, and we'd save lives. I know there have been lives saved, and that to me, that's what makes Ben's death. For me to be able to say, I have saved other lives. I couldn't save his, but I know darn well I've saved a lot of other lives, and that is a good feeling. I wanted there to be something that I could do that would honor his death and honor his life. And it just, I felt like being proactive and trying to be an advocate and just would honor him. And that's how I felt. My daughter, however, just said, Mom, how in the world do you do it? How do you put yourself out there like that and tell your story? I said, Molly, every time I tell it, there's a little bit of my heart that just sort of gets healed a little bit, and it's such an honor to talk about Ben. I love talking about Ben. I didn't ever want it to become rote. I didn't want it to just be a story that I was telling. I wanted it to be from my heart. I wanted it to make an impact. And it got to a point at one time I was doing it quite a bit, and it became feeling that way. I just didn't want it to become that way, that it was just a story I was telling. It's my story, and I just wanted it to be my story with some emotion and impact. I just wanted to make an impact. I've had letters from parents who have said, because of you, we have, made sure that we, when we take our daughter or son to school, we make sure that they are, on a sleep where it's sprinkled, because that was my message always, to, ask questions. Don't just assume, because I didn't. I just assumed Ben would be safe. But die in a fire, it had never occurred to me that could happen. It should have, and that's what I try to just emphasize for parents, to just ask questions. Don't just assume. It's too late for me, but I was so happy that others would be safe. I mean, that's truly how I felt. I thought, it's 5 years too late, but it's done. I mean, we accomplished it. It's a great feeling of accomplishment when something that has been so devastating and so emotionally upheaved your life, emotionally just torn you apart, to be able to have something like that accomplished. Every year at Christmas, I had his friends over. We just have coffee or donuts or something. And the last time we did something was the year he would have been 40. My daughter had a big party at her house, and all of his friends came, and their spouses and their children, and it was pretty emotional. But it was so fun to see them, and they just talk about Ben all the time.